Hello everyone, this is Kyle from Bywater, and today I wanted to take a drive around the users table and show you basic user management in Libki. So I have a demo system here, and I am going to go ahead and log in to the administration side. You'll see by default we end up on the Clients tab, probably the most used tab in Libki, but right beside it to the left is the Users tab. And here you will see we have a table of all the users in our instance. So this is entirely searchable. For example, if you know the name or whatever your username is, very often it's going to be the card number, especially if you are using SIP for single sign-on. But it doesn't have to be. For example, if you're using guest cards and you haven't changed the default guest prefix, you'll see a lot of accounts that say guest at the beginning. And of course, you can have custom created ones, especially for staff. You might have something. Here we have F. Herbert, for instance. We have Earl. We have BWS support. So you can search for any part of the username. For example, if we type guest, we're going to get everything that begins with guest. If we type 15, we're going to get anything that contains 15. It doesn't have to be at the beginning. It's anywhere in the username. So that is very helpful if you're trying to locate a particular guest, because your list can get very long. You can see down on the bottom right, we can page through the results if we want to. And that includes, we can do a search first, and then we can page through those results. All right. We can also do sorting. So you can sort by just about any column here. So if you are looking for just your disabled patrons, you can sort by status, and it'll show the disabled at the top or the enabled at the top, depending on the sorting. Everyone in my instance here is enabled, so I don't see anything like that. You can also see notes, so if you're looking for people who have notes, you can just sort it like that. Troublemaker, the same thing. You can see we have the client name. So if you sort by client, you'll get basically everyone who's logged in. Probably easier to see that from the Clients tab. Same with the client status. Creation source basically tells you if it was created through SIP or if it was created by hand, things like that. I don't think I have any, that's not populated in mine because all of my patrons were created before the upgrade that added that feature. All right, so another thing you'll see here is a refresh button. So that'll just reload the table. If anything's changed, probably not going to happen too much on the user tab. That's far more useful on the clients tab where things are often changing minute by minute. So if you see over here, I just got some new buttons added. I noticed that I had used one of the system settings to run some custom JavaScript to hide those. So I re-enabled them, and we've got 3 buttons. We've got new user, which creates a standard user. We've got new guest, which auto-generates a single guest. It will automatically increment the guest counter, which gets reset nightly, starts at 1 again every morning. We get a password, which is just a 4-digit PIN, easy to pass around, easy to give out, easy to remember, and the number of minutes that guest gets. The button beside that is multiple guests. So this is for creating batches of guests. And if you click this, it will tell you what the last guest number created was, how many accounts were created, which is controlled by another system setting, and how many minutes they have. And you can also then click view and print guest passes to pop up a new window where you will have a printable view of those. So basically so that you can create slips that you can cut out and pass out, or maybe you have a receipt printer. You can actually use some custom CSS to trigger automatic cutting with a receipt printer so that you can just batch print them and they pop out that receipt printer all cut so nice and neat. It's really great feature. All right. So then let's jump back to the new user button. And if you look at that, you'll see it's very straightforward. You pick a username, and it automatically checks to see if a user exists. So you can see that. I can change it. Bam, I know that this is a unique username now. Put in a password. You can choose a different default amount of minutes. It only affects the current day, or you can just leave it as it is. And now if I do a search for K-Hall, you'll see I have my original one, which it told me already existed, and then I have my username here. So what can we do to an existing user? You see, if we hover over a user, we have 4 different things we can do. We can delete a user, very straightforward, it deletes it. We can mark this user as a troublemaker. What that does is it says this patron cannot just sit down and log in at a computer each day. Their password must be set every day by a librarian. Why would you do this? Basically account abuse. This feature was born out of the fact that some people will share their logins, share their usernames and passwords amongst each other so that they can basically monopolize the computer all day. So one person might have the usernames and passwords for 4 of their friends, so they can use 5 times as much computer time that day. If you catch someone doing that, you can mark the accounts being abused as troublemaker accounts. That way that person needs to come to a human person and verify that they are who they say they are. And that only works for that day. Next day they want to use a computer, they have to come and do it all over again. You can see, you can also change how long this occurs. So maybe on a first strike, you do it for a day or a week, and on the second strike, you do it for a month or 3 months. And if there's a third strike, you just don't trust that person anymore. And you always require their account to be verified before they can use it. All right, and so if you click this, you can just choose one. You can add a note if you wish. And there you go. So it set the note for the patron, and it tells you exactly how long they will be a troublemaker. And after that day, the troublemaker status will be cleared automatically. If you click it again, it toggles it off. It doesn't change the note though, because that note is part of the account. So if it had something specifically to do with being a troublemaker, it'll stay on there. Kind of useful to have for historical purposes. Since we're already in the edit user page, let's go ahead and look at this. So you can see by default we don't take too much into Libki. We have the username. That's really the only required piece of data. What you can add is a first name and a last name. Those can also be pulled from SIP. Use it if you're using SIP for single sign-on. Same with category. We don't have any categories defined, but you can create those and you can use them to put different types of users into different categories, and you can have those pulled through SIP if your category codes match between the SIP server and Libki itself. You can choose to change the amount of minutes they have. Again, that lasts for 1 day. You can change the status. So if you simply don't want an account to be usable, you can set this to disabled, and that account cannot be used to log into Libki. Again, we already talked about the notes. It's very straightforward. It's just free text note fields. The next tab is where we add permissions to allow administration for this user. Libki keeps it super simple at this point. There's only 2 types of users outside of your standard end users. There are administrators and there are super administrators. Basically, the only difference between the 2 is that a super administrator can change settings. Other than that, they have all the same rights and privileges. Let's see. Another option, and the final option that we need to cover right now, is a password change, and it's very simple. It's right out here. instead of having to do it in the edit user form, because it's often something that you need to do more quickly, especially if you're dealing with troublemakers. So you can just click the password button and put in a new password. All right, well, once again, I am Kyle Hall from Bywater Solutions, and I hope this has been helpful. Take care, everyone.